I'm Andrew Swift of Heritage Rat, and I've been researching, exploring and presenting the fascinating goldfields history of eastern Victoria all my life. About 20 years ago, we released a series of documentaries highlighting some of the principal gold mines and goldfields of the Upper Ovens Valley. As part of our Heritage Rat Archive series, we hope to release some of those documentaries in the coming months. The first of those documentaries is on the Buckland Valley Goldfield. And in episode 1, we'll be looking closely at the rich gold yields that were first obtained by the diggers and some of the methods and techniques they used to extract that gold. But we'll also be exploring a darker element of that goldfield's history and looking at why hundreds, if not thousands of individuals died in that first summer of 1853-1854. If you enjoyed this documentary, please like, share and subscribe. And if you want to see more of this type of content, please leave a comment in the comments section. I hope you enjoy episode 1 of the Buckland Valley Goldfield, and I hope to see you again real soon. Cheerio. Overlooking the lower reaches of the Buckland River is now Buffalo. Like an ancient sentinel, she guarded the plunder that lay on the upper reaches of the Buckland River, warning all those that sought the treasure beyond that the cost may come at the ultimate price. ranges in the winter of 1853, and the Buckland River was charged with its seasonal rains. Gold had been shedding into this tributary for over 1,000,000 years. Now, a party of prospectors left out from Beechworth back in those very early days and prospected the upper tributaries of the Ovens River. And they were led by a New Yorker by the name of Henry Pardoe. And when they reached this untamed river, they found what they were looking for: large amounts of gold. Now, Pardoe and his party had this river to themselves for quite some time, but then they ran out of supplies, so one of the party journeyed 60 miles back to Beechworth, where he was to pick up all their provisions to last him a few months. Well, that first night he got there, he had a few drinks at a local pub, and well, his tongue became a little bit too lubricated, and he started sprouting in the streets that he and Pardoe's party were making £5 weight in gold per day per man. The golden cat was out of the bag. Slopes of the Great Dividing Range here. The river flows northwards between steep mountain ranges for some 30 or 40 kilometres. Mount Buffalo is found on its western side near where the Buckland River junctions with the Ovens River at Porpunka. To the Buckland diggings was quite slow because of the initial secrecy of the early parties and heavy scrub down that end of the valley towards Porpunka. But for those hell-bent on getting their share of the plunder, you couldn't stop them, and they soon blazed trails here. Now, William Howard, who was a writer and explorer, wrote a first-hand account of the rush to the Buckland diggings, and he describes it quite intimately in this book, Land, Labour and Gold. Now, he describes a scene of men, women and children and carts and drays all in a hurry to get to the diggings, and he also describes individuals burdened with tents and provisions all on their way for the share of the plunder. By early December 1853, only a few months after Henry Pardoe's initial discovery of this field, there were some 1,000 diggers here. By the end of that month of December, the population had increased to 3,000, and it was estimated that there were some 500 or more eager diggers on the road to get to this place. By early January 1854, the population in this narrow valley had swollen to a staggering 6,000 people. It was now a scene of eager diggers and makeshift tents, stores and shanties. The tranquility of this valley had no choice but to surrender to the din generated by thousands in their quest for gold. Few who arrived on these diggings were actually experienced miners, and they came from all manner of different backgrounds. They also came from all corners of the globe. The majority of these diggers are actually Scots, English and Irishmen, but you also had Yankees, Negroes, Poles, Swedes, Danes, Germans, etc., etc. And you also had, though, the experienced 49ers fresh from the goldfields of California. And soon, too, you would have the arrival of many Chinese diggers to the Buckland Goldfield. This place was a real melting pot of cultures. The early days of the diggings would have been an exciting time. For all those who took part, each were freed from the shackles of their past. They were now their own bosses. These diggers wore an array of colourful shirts and comical hats. They had bowie knives and pistols thrust in their belts, and they spat, drank and swore whenever they wanted. This was diggerdom, a free and easy life where tomorrow could be your lucky day. American miner by the name of Henry Morgan came out onto the Buckland diggings in 1853. Little did he know at this time, but he was to remain a resident of the Buckland Valley for the rest of his life. And during his 50 years on the Buckland, he kept a diary. And in this diary, he talks about mining and the raising of a family and the building and so on that he did. And this diary is a remarkable first-hand personal account of someone who lived on this remarkable field during the golden era. Now, gold was initially worked in the bed of the streams and along its adjacent banks, and it was incredibly rich. This type of gold is known as alluvial gold. And alluvial gold is the gold that has been eroded from the quartz reefs up into the hills and over millions of years found its way into these places in the river and along its adjacent banks. Now the tools that the very first diggers were using, other than their hands and picking up small nuggets and putting them in their pockets, were these. They'd use a gold pan and a shovel. And what they would do was just shovel the gravels and the clays in these places and pan them off. Gold having a high density, it would be puddled up and work its way to the bottom. Now as the months on the diggings passed here, they brought in more elaborate gold-saving appliances, and we've got one just behind me over here. Now this baby is the next model up from the gold pan, and this is called a cradle. Now these were common on any alluvial gold mining diggings that were close to water. Basically, what the diggers did was shovel all the gold-bearing gravel into this top bit, this hopper. They would then scoop water into the top and rock it from side to side. This would break up all the clayey content and hopefully free the gold. The gold will then get stuck in a series of ripples down on this bottom bit. As you'll see though, as the Buckland diggings evolved and the mining techniques slightly changed, we'll see different types of mining technology that was used on this field. An ounce of gold. An ounce of gold today weighs about 28.3 grams. And in the old days, 1 ounce of gold would probably fetch between 2 to 4 pounds, depending on who you sold it to and what particular price it was actually fetching on a particular diggings at that time. Now, during the old days, an ounce of gold was the equivalent of 2 weeks' wages for an average labourer, and for a skilled tradesman, it was probably worth 1 week's wages. And it just so happens I've been out doing a little bit of panning and prepared an ounce of gold for you, and this is what it looks like. It's about a level teaspoon. There it is there. And that's actually today worth $800. So an ounce of gold still equates roughly to your average weekly wage. Now when Henry Parder and his party first got to the Buckland, they were said to be attaining an ounce of gold per pan. And over a few days they got 30 pounds weight worth in gold. And that's about 480 ounces in a few days. Today, that'd be worth over $385,000. Now with these rich finds, no wonder heaps of people were coming to the Buckland. Other parties were said to be attaining at least 5 ounces a day just from the sand next to the banks. And in the first month alone, gold escorts from the Buckland Valley took over 10,000 ounces of gold up to Sydney. Within a year, the easily obtained gold had been worked out. It would now take more than a few carefree swirls of the pan and a few rocks of the cradle. However, in the summer of 1854, a shadow passed over this valley that would haunt this place forever. And was the site of the first main settlement area of the diggers. About this whole area were stores, butchers, the police station, its lock-up and the courthouse. Around this whole area would have been a scene of diggers working away, and the air would have been full of the sounds of their rocking of cradles and the swirling of tin dishes. But in this air in the summer of 1854 was a far more deadly odour. Mounds of turned up earth, tons of butcher's offal, heaps of domestic rubbish, not to mention the human waste, all laid bare about the place. Much of it dumped in the already polluted river. William Howard described the flies on the Buckland to be the worst in the colony. Within minutes, woolen blankets and horse rugs would be a teeming scene of maggots. Typhoid or colonial fever swept through the population. The creeping miasma of bacteria was everywhere. On entering the digestive system, it caused diarrhoea, prostration, intestinal inflammation and fever. Pick and shovel were turned from claim digging to grave digging as the epidemic swept through the population. Most were hastily buried on site by those who too were greatly affected by illness. The old-timers speak of the long grave, where victims were laid from head to toe in water races and buried in a shallow cover of earth. It is impossible to verify how many died from this epidemic. Some quote say 1,000, others say as many as 3,000. On the 25th of April 1854 though, an article was printed in the Melbourne Morning Herald that gives a bit of an indication as to how many deaths occurred in this place. The constant immersion of the lower extremities in cold water, while the upper part of the body was exposed to the burning rays of the sun. The large consumption of highly adulterated spirits sold by the villainous sly grog dealer, and the unrelenting pursuit of an arduous toil brought out, in a majority of instances, violent attacks of dysentery accompanied by low fever. Will it be believed that last summer, under this system of iniquity, in one day and in one neighbourhood of this valley, the number of funerals amounted to 17, and that from 8 to 12 were not uncommon. In early 1854, the population of the Buckland diggings had been some 6,000, but by October it had dwindled to only 20. Those who could deserted for healthier fields, and those that were now left behind would remain residents of the Buckland forever.